Well, hey there, fellow Texans. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Welcome to the big show. And our top story of the day is another attempt on Donald Trump's life. And, how many times does this have to happen before we start to say, hey, I'm noticing a pattern here? Hey, that's crazy because one side of the aisle is having assassination attempts against their president and presidential candidates over and over and over. The other side, not. One side of the aisle, whenever they get upset, they block streets, they throw bricks through windows, they beat up people in the streets, a lot of property damage, things start catching fire. The other side, not so much. One side has a problem with violence in the streets. One side has a problem with violence directed at assassin targets, whether it's a Donald Trump or a Charlie Kirk or... Yet, the frustrating part about this comes from when you get the reports and immediately people start saying, he's MAGA. I guess we have a problem with those Trump supporters. I told you they were all monsters. I told you that these people were out of control. They're literally Hitler. And it's not like just a blame game, like a he said, she said, trying to get one over on your siblings here. The problem with that is if they don't admit that they have a problem, they're not going to change anything, and the problem's never going to get better. Right? If you're sick and you go to the doctor and the doctor misdiagnoses you, you're not going to get better. If you have AIDS, but he says you have cancer, then he's going to give you chemo, and that's not going to fix your AIDS. In fact, it'll probably make it worse. And vice versa is true too. If you have cancer, but he says you have AIDS, he's going to give you AZT or whatever the Magic Johnson cocktail is these days, and you're not going to get any better. In fact, you're going to get worse. So this is what we're seeing over and over and over. First, I guess we can go through the details. I don't even have to play for you what happened here. I mean, you've already been, unless you just turned on the radio like a second ago, you already heard the news reports and whatnot. But even if you didn't hear the news reports, you know what's going on. Let me guess. Some guy who doesn't like Trump, probably for political purposes, wanted to take him out. Sounds pretty cut and dry. Nothing controversial about that. Here's the local cops explaining it to you yesterday.
Morning, the security detail detected that a individual had made his way into the inner perimeter of Mar-a-Lago. A deputy and two Secret Service agents on the detail went to that area to investigate. They confronted a white male that was carrying a gas can and a shotgun. He was ordered to drop those two pieces of equipment that he had with him, at which time he put down the gas can, raised the shotgun to a shooting position. At that point in time, the deputy and the two Secret Service agents fired their weapons and neutralized.
Okay, so we don't know a whole lot about the shooter yet. We will eventually. But the rush here for people to go out and put politics on it, I mean, it's ugly, but it's just the world we live in. Let me give you a quick rundown here because you had the Morning Joe this morning quoting the New York Times. And here's a couple of quotes that they highlighted on Morning Joe is the MSNBC morning show. It's called MSNO now or MS now. But New York Times said in their article, armed men who was fatally shot at Mar-a-Lago like to draw golf courses. Really, that's your headline? That's what you like to focus on? He liked to draw golf courses? Does that have anything to do with this story? I mean, I guess he was on a golf course, so that's a pretty tangential connection. But here's the quote. He is from a very pro-Trump family and fit into that narrative, said Clarice Bonillo, 21, who was his officer in the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. But he wouldn't go out of his way to bash anybody from the left side or start arguments or anything like that. He had his opinion. He mostly kept it to himself. Another quote from the New York Times that was amplified by M. Snow this morning. 3 high school friends of Mr. Martin said on Sunday that he sometimes expressed traditional conservative views to his classmates. And the rush is on to stain this guy as a Trump supporter. Why? Because they just want to make Trump supporters look bad, number one. But number two, they don't want to have to admit that there's something wrong with their side. Their worldview depends on them misidentifying this guy is a Trump supporter. Just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. Here's Brian Allen. He's, if you don't know him, that's fine. He's a well-known lefty influencer, 500,000 followers on Twitter X, whatever we call it. It said the man trying to enter Mar-a-Lago with a shotgun was a white Christian Trump supporter, not trans, not Democrat, not an immigrant. He believed in Trump and was crushed by an economy that left him desperate. That's the real story. And I find this so exhausting. Can we at least just start with the basic, most obvious fact in this story? And this shouldn't be controversial, and this shouldn't be hard. If you're trying to kill Trump, you're not a pro-Trump person. Can we just start with that? Like, these two things are mutually exclusive. You can't be both. You can't be pro-Trump and trying to kill him at the same time. That's like saying, hey, yes, that wire there that's connecting the stereos to the speakers, that is red and green at the same time. It just can't happen. It's not a thing. Maybe he was a Trump supporter. Maybe he's a former Trump supporter. But I think when you're in the middle of an assassination attempt, your Trump support has maybe waned in recent history, and they won't let it go. And that stinks, because now you're going to get blamed. Other people are going to get fired up. Oh, I told you they were crazy. And this is just going to confirm their delusions that the problem with violence in America, especially politically motivated, is coming from Team Red. It's not. Now, I'm not saying he's a lefty. I'm saying clearly he's anti-Trump. I tried to look up what he really is. He's all over the map. He's a pro-Ukraine guy, which isn't really what most of Team Red is all about. That's more of a Team Blue thing. Who put the Ukraine flag in their bios? Who put the Ukraine flag in their name, in their Twitter name? Who put the Ukraine flag all over their social media? Yeah, it's just generally seen as sort of a leftist position. He's a COVID conspiracy theorist who thought China released the coronavirus on purpose. Okay, that kind of sounds more like a right-winger than a left-winger. He supported a Nikki Haley Vivek Ramaswamy presidential ticket, which is very neocon. In fact, that's the kind of Republican that would be pro-Ukraine, where most Republicans aren't. So he's kind of this purple mishmash thing, but he's also really young. And, you know, I have a hard time believing people that young really know what the hell they stand for. I remember being 21. I didn't have strong opinions on pretty much anything political, partially because I knew I was wildly uninformed. But this guy felt strongly enough about it that he was going to go kill Trump. Now, where did he get all this negative information about Trump? Where did he get all this negative information about Trump's economy? If that is the case, we'll talk about that coming up next. Because if this guy was pro-Trump and then he had his mind changed and his hatred was so inflamed for Trump, where did that come from? 800-288-9227. I'll explain my theory next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker, on your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins, who are coming up in just a couple hours right now. And I'm just going to share with you on our top story of the day, another attempt on Trump's life. And you got to put some big asterisks behind this because it was a gunman who broke into Mar-a-Lago. He got through the perimeter. He was in a restricted area. He had a gas can. He had a shotgun. He raised his shotgun into a shooting position, and Secret Service took him out. But the asterisk comes from Donald Trump wasn't even there. So what was the worst case scenario in Saturday night's situation? Nothing for Trump. There was 0% chance of an assassination happening that night. So what we have here is it just looks like a crazy person. And it looks like his family knew he was crazy when he went missing for a few hours. They already reported him missing. Like, your parents didn't do that for you when you were 21. If you went missing for a couple hours, they'd be like, he's probably out chasing skirts or having fun or playing volleyball at Sonic or something. But apparently the family knew he was crazy. There was no chance of him killing Trump. But there's still a lot of lessons to be learned here, and there's some points of concern, like how close did he get? What if Trump really had been there? Is Mar-a-Lago really safe? Because when people are incredulous online, like, how could someone get through the perimeter? Well, look, Mar-a-Lago is still a business. It's like a resort. It's open to the public. You can go. And the reports were that at Mar-a-Lago, there was a wedding there that night. Might be a little more expensive than your wedding, but it was still, it kind of has to be somewhat open to the public. Hi, Miss Parker. Yeah, we'll renew our vows there, Miss Parker. But I want to share with you this discussion that was had about 2 hours ago on News Nation, where the host is talking to a former FBI agent named John here, and he kind of gives, look, we don't know a whole lot to have a strong opinion on this, but here's some of what we do know.
Security did an amazing job keeping everyone safe, and they're responsible for the security apparatus. When something like this happens, it then becomes a federal investigation governed by the FBI. The FBI will step in, look at everything, including examining everything in this individual's past, all his media, anything he was doing online, people he was communicating with. Was this telegraphed to anyone that didn't step forward and let law enforcement know? Are there others that may have goaded him on? They want to figure out all that to prevent the next event from happening as well.
Yes, that's the part I want you to hear. Because ultimately, this is a crazy person. This isn't a person that's rational. This is a person that, a shotgun and a gas can, he's crazy. You think you can take out a president with a shotgun and a gas can? What are you going to do? Just walk up to him and shoot him? Look at what it took for us to go get Venezuela's president. We had to have the helicopters. We had to have the hacking of the power grid. We had to send in some drones to knock out some other response capabilities beforehand. We had to drop off some Delta Force, Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal. Probably The Rock was in there. We had to have these sonic weapons. And we take this guy and we jettison him off. That's how you take out the head of a state. Not with a gas can in your left hand and a 12 gauge in your right hand. That's not going to do it. So this guy's clearly crazy. But the point that the former FBI agent is making is a sticking point. Because I believe the Ruth guy that tried to kill Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago, the guy that shot his ear in Pennsylvania, crazy people. And crazy people exist among us. They're always going to exist among us. But he's making a good point. We need to start having a conversation on who talked this crazy person, who pointed that crazy in this direction. Because it's not just crazy people and, oh, well, I guess this is something we have to put up with because we share the world with crazy people. No. There wasn't assassination attempts against Joe Biden. There wasn't assassination attempts against Kamala Harris. There wasn't assassination attempts against Barack Obama. No, someone is taking crazy people and sharpening their hatred for Trump and pointing it at Trump. And it's called the media. It's called politicians. It's called academia. It's called a few of the people that like to send me Instagram messages. People are just out of your mind crazy. And the media's constant hype and sensationalism, and this guy's literally Hitler and Nazis and fascism. They are activating crazy people to commit violence in that direction. And so, yeah, we should have a talk about that, because when we talk about you need to tone down the rhetoric, it's not because, oh, I'm offended and my delicate sensibilities can't handle being called racist or sexist or bigot or homophobe or whatever. No, it's because, number one, it's not true. And so, therefore, these crazy people that you're rounding up and pointing at us, you're the bad guy. Kim Hillsborough, you're on WBAP. Hey, Kim.
Hey, I don't know if you know it, but anxiety, certain medications cause suicidal as well as homicidal behavior, thoughts and behavior.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of people point out is this guy on SSRIs? Because there's a faction of the online community that anytime one of these obviously crazy people shootings happen, they bring up SSRIs, and I don't have a good reaction to that, Kim, because
Dr. Peter Breggin, Breggin, he's a good source.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot of them that say every mass shooter in the last 50 years has been on SSRIs, and that's amazing because that's about the time we started using SSRIs. And I like that connection too, because it may just be a hell of a coincidence, Kim. But
we need to check their blood immediately if something like that's going on, just to verify it, maybe.
Well, the other part about that, though, Kim, if it is just the SSRIs, why is nobody shooting at Democrats? Why is nobody why did no one try to assassinate Kamala Harris or Joe Biden in the last election cycle, but Donald Trump had 2 attempts on his life? Why is Donald Trump having another attempt on his life where Barack Obama got 8 years pretty much uninterrupted? So it may be SSRIs are playing a part, but if it was just SSRIs, someone would be shooting at Democrats at some point too, not just Team Red.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a guy, Stalin. What was that guy's name?
Well,
Stalin had said this guy could make it down levels through different guards, that he would believe that he was real. And I can't recall his name. It starts with an S. But he was really good at mind control and such as that. So somebody needs to look into it.
Will do. Thank you very much. That's Kim in Hillsborough. Semi-regular caller. She gets me a lot of emails, too. That's good stuff. All right. Do you have any theories on what the heck happened at Mar-a-Lago this weekend? More theories coming up next on The James Show, and I'll read you some of his social media posts. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. So there's another attempt on Trump's life. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Now, this isn't going to be one of these stories we talk about for days and days and days because it's something that Trump's life was never really in danger. He wasn't even in town when this happened, but a gunman gets through the perimeter, gets into a restricted area at Mar-a-Lago. He has a gas cannon, a shotgun. Secret Service and other security try and tell him to stop, put down your gun. He raises his gun to a shooting position and they take him out. Now, I am not going to straight up say that this is your standard Team Blue Democrat. No, this is a crazy person. I have a lot of good friends in my personal life that are Democrats, and none of them think this is okay or would do this. So I'm not saying this is a problem with the mainstream Democrats out there, small d Democrats out there. But when you see the pattern only going one way, then you can't just blame, well, he's just crazy. Or like in Kim in the last segment, a lot of people think it's, there's something going on with serotonin, or not serotonin, Prozac, the SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitors or whatever they're called. Okay, well, if that was the case, if it was just the problem with Prozac and antidepressants, then there would be bullets flying at both Team Red and Team Blue. And I'm not saying that's not a factor whatsoever. But when all the assassination attempts are going one direction, and we do have the one exception of the guy in Minnesota who shot the state rep. Okay, that's legit. But hell, just in the last month, how many crazy leftists have gone out there and done mass acts of violence? We had the trans mass shooter that happened at the Canadian school where he killed his parents. There was another one that was that last week or 2 weeks ago? A second trans shooter at the hockey game. We've had many churches shot up, including Joel Osteen's church here in Texas. We've had Christian schools shot up. And so when you add it all up, okay, we have like 20, maybe 30 of these events compared to going against Team Red versus one that went against Team Blue. This isn't happenstance. This isn't 50-50. This isn't 60-40. This isn't explainable by your regular statistical probabilities. So there is something to be said about the fact that the hyperbolic, unfair, sensational rhetoric coming from the media, coming from politicians, coming from the Jasmine Crockett's of the world, coming from the Chuck Schumers and the AOCs of the world, coming from the Morning Joes and MSNBC, coming from CNN, coming from a lot of local news agencies in every market. There is some blame, some percentage of blame has to go at their feet. Because if it was even somewhat even, you wouldn't see this pattern emerge. Now let's go look at how this guy has been trained. Because I'll even grant you the idea that maybe at one time he was a Trump supporter. But the reaction to this is almost comically insulting, like self-deprecating, just unintentionally as well. When they say, look, he's a Trump supporter. Well, how can you tell? Well, look, he comes from a nice family. He's not from a broken home. He's not visibly repulsive. He dresses normal. He has a normal haircut. He doesn't have tattoos all up and down his body where he looks like the desk I used to sit at in school suspension. The D Hall desk. He doesn't have any weird piercings in his face. He doesn't hate his dad. He hasn't shaved his head. He's not wearing funky clothes. He's not wearing a furry outfit. So look at him. He looks like a normal person. He must be one of yours. I always love that argument. Look, he's a decent human being. He gets good grades. He comes from a nice family. Clearly, he's not one of us. God, do you people realize how much you're insulting yourself with that? But then when you actually go dig around into social media before it gets wiped, there's a bunch of geniuses who went out there and took a bunch of screenshots. Here's one from February 15th, I believe, of this year. This is a weird one because it shows a picture of Ashley Babbitt. Most people know exactly who that is, but if you're new to talk radio, Ashley Babbitt was the pro-Trump protester that got shot crawling through a broken window at the Capitol on January 6th. And in this, Austin shares a meme, which maybe this was just 8 days ago. This is what it looks like. Looks like he shared a meme 8 days ago. Shows Ashley Babbitt's face in a MAGA hat, and the caption says, "Maybe I should have just stayed home too." Ooh. You know, because the people that are getting themselves killed, going out and interfering with ICE agents and whatnot. Maybe I should have just stayed home too. Does that sound like a Trump supporter? Does that sound like someone who's pro-MAGA? Because even if you go find some data point years ago where they're pro-MAGA, they're not pro-MAGA now, are they? Would a pro-MAGA person post a picture of Ashley Babbitt in a MAGA hat saying, maybe I should have just stayed home too? Another piece of evidence, if you actually go look at the man's social media feed. By the way, if you want to know, Austin Tucker Martin is the suspect here that people are assuming is the shooter. Here's another one where he posts a meme. It's George Washington in that sort of RBF resting B face picture that you see on the dollar bill where he's not smiling. He just kind of looks ticked that you're there, like you just smelled a fart. And the quote under it, it says, "America was a mistake," in quotes, and then it says George Washington under it. As if George Washington saw the modern iteration of America, he would think America was a mistake. Is that a MAGA person? Because it's almost more interesting if he used to be a MAGA person, but now he's not. Because then the interesting confluence here says, oh, wait. So when he was a MAGA person, he wasn't shooting at people. He wasn't trying to kill anyone. He wasn't doing any assassination attempts. He wasn't breaking into perimeters with a shotgun and a gas can. It was only when he jettisoned his MAGA values, adopted the ethos of Team Blue, did he become a violent wannabe assassin. That makes it even worse, doesn't it? That takes a person who wasn't violent, who was following the same principles and values that you follow, and he wasn't violent. But the second he starts following Team Blue, he goes violent. Because that sounds like what happened with the Matthew Crooks guy that shot Donald Trump's ear in Pennsylvania. He used to be MAGA. And then he got radicalized in the other direction. I believe the Ruth guy is the same way. The guy who just got life in prison for setting up the assassination at Mar-a-Lago that failed in 2024. And so now you're all caught up on this guy and you can make your own decisions. Do we really have a problem with MAGA violence, or do we have a problem with Team Blue violence? And if it's that obvious, how is the rest of the media not getting this? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Mexico's a mess. I mean, even worse than usual. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, Mexico is even more of a mess than it usually is. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. For my Mexican friends, you're not even offended by that because you know what I'm talking about. Well, we have one of the biggest cartel leaders, maybe the biggest cartel leader in Mexico. He got taken out this weekend. Now, technically, it wasn't the Americans that did it, but as I understand, the Americans provided some logistical support. So that means they probably couldn't have done it without us, and it's probably our idea, and we were just using them as pawns to be on the front lines to have some sort of, political distance, legal distance there. But this is a situation where you might not agree with my final conclusion, but we will agree with what's going on with the facts on the ground. First, let's get all caught up here. And instead of going to the national outlets, Fox News and MSNBC, because they get real political, sometimes it's better to go to some local news outlets. So we're going to start with the San Diego CBS affiliate, where they talk about the shelter-in-place warning issued for Americans in Mexico. And one of the first scenes from this video is drone footage from a Costco in Mexico. Yes, they have Costco in Mexico. And in it, there are 5 giant fires raging where cars are burning in the parking lot. So when they say we begin with a chaotic scene unfolding across Mexico, oh yeah, it's chaotic.
With the chaotic scenes unfolding across Mexico right now after the Mexican army killed the leader of a powerful drug cartel today in Jalisco. Tonight, the warning to U.S. citizens amid the violence. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Price. Americans in Mexico are being urged to use caution as the violence there plays out. News 8's Esmeralda Perez monitoring the situation. She joins us now with what is going on, a very scary situation.
Definitely terrifying, Steve. Now, the U.S. Embassy and consulates in Mexico are now warning Americans in several parts of Mexico, including Tijuana, Tecate, and Ensenada, to shelter in place until further notice. This comes amid ongoing security operations with road blockages and criminal activity.
All right, in the background, they're showing cars that have already been burnt. They're not on fire anymore. They just showed a burnt-out OXXO store, OXXO. That's like the 7-Eleven for Mexico. They're everywhere once you get out of the touristy parts. And it really is super chaotic. Now, remember, this is coming from San Diego, so you can almost spit on Tijuana from there. So they're seeing the smoke rise up over the border for these people. And, the pictures are really bad. Let's go to a report from the CBS affiliate in Miami, where they spend a little more time talking about the tourists and other Americans that are right now trapped in Mexico. It's what's probably the worst time to be trapped in Mexico.
And the alert desk is tracking the violence erupting in Mexico. Well, this after the country's most wanted cartel boss is killed. Places like Puerto Vallarta looking like a war zone. Take a look at some of the video here. Suspected gang members, they've been clapping back at Mexican leaders. They've been torching cars and buses. And you can see these clouds of black smoke are now being seen really across this popular resort town. It's right along Mexico's Pacific coast. So here's what we know right now. Mexico's military killed drug lord El Mencho, and they did have some help, some intelligence help.
Oh, by the way, El Mencho, that is Spanish for the Mensch. The hell kind of name is that? Anyway.
Fact from the United States. Now at this hour, most roadblocks meant to stop the spreading violence has actually been cleared now. And this morning, the U.S. is warning American tourists to stay inside their hotels. Airlines, including American, have suspended flights heading to this area of Mexico. And this is where a U.S. tourist is following that advice to stay put. And this especially after seeing some of this violence firsthand. All
right, we don't need to hear their story. So yeah, that was CBS News in Miami, spelling it out for you. I've got some bad news for you here. A lot of people think, yeah, that's good. We're socking it to the cartels. That'll show them we'll win this drug war. We're not going to win the drug war. It doesn't matter how many cartel bosses you kill today. Tomorrow, Hunter Biden's still smoking crack. There's going to be smackheads still doing smack. The people are going to get their addiction fed. This isn't a social issue. This isn't even really a governance issue. This is an economics issue. And capitalism isn't like a theory. Capitalism isn't a suggestion. Capitalism is a law. We are going to live by it for the rest of your lives. It is immutable. And if there's a strong enough demand for a product, if people are willing to spend whatever they can for this product, it will be given to them. It will be provided to them by some guy who's looking to make that profit. Now, I'm not defending El Mencho. He's probably a terrible person. The cartels are made up of terrible, violent, horrible people. But this isn't going to put them out of business. This is just going to reset the table. And there has to be a new kingpin. And who's the kingpin of the drug cartels going to be? It's going to be whoever's the strongest, most ruthless, most violent, most psychopathic. You make drugs legal tomorrow, that guy goes out of business. And then the person who provides you your drugs isn't going to be the person who is the most violent, psychopathic, powerful, evil fella. It's going to be CVS, Walgreens, or Rite Aid. And they're not going to shoot each other to get your business. They're not going to set buses on fire in Costco to get your business. They're not going to murder tourists to get your business. They're going to try and provide you the highest quality product at the cheapest price with the best service. Which one sounds better to you? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. More on the basket case that is Mexico coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Chaos in Mexico is one of the top stories of the day. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I know, good to see you too. Happy Monday. Not a very happy Monday in Mexico, because what we have is a cartel leader got his block knocked off. United States had a little bit to do with that. But now have we really improved the situation? Is Mexico better off now that we killed this guy? Because what they're going to have next in this wave of violence is the mad scramble to fill that power vacuum that El Mencho was previously occupying until this weekend. How many people are going to die because we killed this guy? How many people are not going to overdose because we killed this guy? Because we're told that, with this is for public safety, generally speaking. But if we're still going to have the same amount of people addicted to drugs, and we're going to have even more violence as we work to fill in this hole in Mexico. Now, granted, it's not going to be our problem. That's going to be Mexico's problem. It's easy to see how we did not make the world a better place in Mexico by doing this. So, again, not to defend. I am not defending cartel kingpins. But I'm just saying, whenever you create a multi-billion-dollar black market, this is going to be the result. Mexico has somewhat backslid over the last few decades because of the drug war. And some people will say, well, they need to stop electing corrupt leaders, or they need to stop electing people who are bought off by the cartel. I'm sorry, but when you have billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of incentive, the cartel is going to be in charge. You can't get rid of it. You can't have an honest Mexico. There's too much money going through there. And once you roll up a significant minority of the judges, of the policemen, of the politicians that are getting bought off, the rest of them necessarily either fall in line or get removed themselves. Either they're fired or they're killed or whatever. So when you have this much money, there's no such thing as an honest government in Mexico. And you see microcosms of that here. I know it's kind of hard for us to make the economic parallels here in our own backyard. But one great example that happens in most of the big towns I've lived in and none of the small towns I've lived in is your garbage. If your garbage is being determined by City Hall, like you don't get to choose who picks up your trash. There's one company that gets the contract from City Hall and they're going to pick up all the trash. That is, on a long enough time scale, guaranteed to become corrupt. Now, in small towns, they don't do this. Where I live, who picks up your trash? I don't know. It depends on who you call. Where I live, there's at least 3 different, if not 4 companies that you can call on to pick up your trash. And they'll do their own little schedule with you. How many times do you want it picked up a week? How many cans do you need? And they adjust accordingly. And so if they don't do a good job, you can just cancel that and go to another company. So they have incentive to do a good job for you. However, in Dallas or most of the big cities you live in, it's a contract that's made by the city and you don't have a choice. So what happens when you have bad service? Can you fire them and send your money to their competitor? Nope. It's already corrupt. And so then who gets the contract? Do the people get the contract who are the best garbage men who are going to provide the best service? Or is it the ones that hook up the city councilman with the proper amount of donations and support? And so it's going to be the supporters one. Maybe not on the first election, maybe not on the second, third contract, but on a long enough time scale, it will all go corrupt if it's put in the hands of government. Same thing here. So Mexico is having a big mess. That is tough here for the United States because there's some flights that are being canceled. There's some travel plans that are being disrupted. There's a lot of people who went down there on vacation. Hey, why wouldn't you go? It's February. It's terrible here. It's beautiful in Cancun or it's beautiful in Jalisco. Now they are stuck in their resort or they're stuck in their room. They can't leave. They're living under this weird cloud of fear. So it's kind of disrupting travel. Of course, this is a bad day for travel when you talk about the snowstorms going on in the Northeast. But I invite you to watch some of these videos and look at the destruction that's happened. And it feels really weird to say this, but taking out this guy, was it the right thing? Taking out El Chapo, I thought that was going to fix something. Taking out El Chapo didn't stop the cartels, didn't stop the flow of drugs. Hunter Biden didn't miss one crack rock between El Chapo and El Mencho. Is he going to miss one after this? And if it doesn't work, why do we keep doing it? Anyway, let's continue with the CBS affiliate in San Diego who is filling out a little bit more of the actual story on the ground here.
I spoke with one of many Americans in Mexico who is experiencing the chaos firsthand. Burning cars, torched businesses, chaos in the streets. Look at this video. Flames ripping through cars in a Costco parking lot. Similar scenes are flooding social media tonight. Violence erupted across parts of Mexico after the Mexican military killed Nemesio Ceguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho, the head of the Jalisco New Generation cartel.
And this was completely out of the ordinary in all of the 30 plus years my wife and I have been visiting. We have never had a problem here.
Jim Murphy is visiting Puerto Vallarta from Illinois. Initially, he tells me he didn't notice anything was wrong until he saw several plumes of black smoke today.
Bro, when they're showing these pictures of the cityscape, when she says several plumes of black smoke, there's like a dozen things on fire, and this is in Jalisco. Or I guess Puerto Vallarta, not too far away. This looks like a shock and awe missile attack. This looks like Gaza a couple days after October 7th. This looks like Baghdad when we went in 2003. I mean, this looks really bad. This looks like a war zone. And then you've got like military helicopters that are flying over it and going through the plumes of smoke, and craziness is happening over there. You guys sure? You want to continue doing this drug war? You think this is really the best way to address the issue, the scourge of drug addiction in our community? Because if you're worried about, the chaos and the death and the destruction of drug addiction, what about the death, chaos, and destruction of fighting the drug industry? It seems to be we're having all the bad parts of the overdoses and the addiction, and we're adding on top of it warlike levels of violence in our neighbor's backyard. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Robert Caltabiano, a former Secret Service agent, get his insights on the Mar-a-Lago attempted shooting this weekend. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker, on your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. Another good show you should check out is the James Show that comes on from 2 to 5. It's a pretty damn good show, too. Well, we're waiting on my guest, the former Secret Service agent, Robert Caltabiano, because I would love to ask him his thoughts on what happened at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend with the gunman being shot. It's just a weird situation. Trump wasn't even there. So, I mean, is this really an assassination attempt? Is this a suicide by cop? What's the deal with the gasoline? It would be nice to talk to a Secret Service agent. So if we can get him on the phone over here in the next segment or two, I'll be sure to pass that along. However, my next biggest story of the day is something that you've probably heard me address on the James Show before if you're a regular listener. But this report came back on City Hall. Now, we have been talking about this for months, and there is some weird burr under the saddle of some people in City Hall, in the City Council, about demolishing City Hall all of a sudden. Where is this coming from? And so the thought is someone wants to tear down City Hall and build something there. Probably a new stadium for the Mavericks. We don't know for sure, but something's going on where they're acting like all of a sudden, out of the blue, boy, this building sure is terrible. I guess we're going to have to tear it down. Well, how bad could it possibly be? Well, jeepers, we ran some reports and it's going to cost $400 million. Actually, that was the report back in November of last year. And when I say November, I mean like literally 1, 2, 3 months ago. This was WFAA talking about City Hall repairs.
City staff say if council members say that they want to list the building, a catalytic new development could go in here. They say it could build on momentum from the new convention center. It could add more money to the city's tax rolls. It could revitalize downtown. But exactly what that new development is, staff isn't saying, at least not yet.
Are you suspicious yet? Remember last week when we were talking about how they were fighting against the data centers in Granbury? They're fighting against the ICE facility in Hutchins. Where's all this talk? Oh, revitalize downtown Hutchins or revitalize downtown Granbury or create all this economic development or create all these new jobs. And they tell you how many millions of dollars it'll generate for the community. That's what they tell you when they want to tear down City Hall, but not when they want to convert an existing warehouse in Hutchins or build a new data center in Granbury. You see the duplicity here? You see the dishonest approach? If it's something they like, they sure do tell you how great it is economically. If it's something they don't like, they don't even mention it. But back then they were telling you the repairs were going to cost $400 million to bring City Hall up to speed. Now, they ran a report, and in a couple weeks it came back. I guess it was a month. And they're saying, oh my goodness, it's going to have to be more than that. Now, in the afternoon show, hopefully I have enough time to dig through the archives and show you when they commissioned this report in January, we were having the discussion on the James Show, and I was telling you, they're going to come back and they're going to be like, oh, it's even more than we thought. In fact, it's so much, it only makes sense, fiscally speaking, if we tear this thing down and build a new one from scratch, which is a lie. But here's the report. It finally became public this morning. They're going to have a city council meeting about it today. This is WFAA.
That's the decision Dallas city leaders face today as they debate the future of City Hall, which is right behind us.
A new report warns that repairs to the aging building could top $1 billion.
And Natalie Haddad is live at City Hall this morning. Natalie, what else did that report reveal, and really what's at stake at this meeting tonight?
Well, it is certainly not pocket change that it would cost to fix this building, and that is what's going to be on the floor tonight here at City Council. A new report says that this 47-year-old building is in critical decline, and today the City Finance Committee will go over what it takes to fix it. Now, this is something, again, that we have been going over for months, and City Council has been going over for months. Do they repair City Hall, including the plumbing, the HVAC systems, electric systems, and the roof, or do they move into new downtown offices? Well, the report estimates a full renovation would cost at least $906 million. That is minimum. So according to this assessment.
Hang on a second. Did you hear that? $906 million. So in the last 3 months, it's doubled. Let me tell you why this is a huge, ridiculous lie and a big hat tip to Bruce over at Reform Dallas for sharing some of these numbers over here. But City Hall is younger than me. You understand that? You understand how City Hall, not only is it not dilapidated and needs to be torn down, it's just fine. City Hall opened in 1978. In 2018, when the building was 40 years old, the city council said, we'll do a facility condition assessment. They officially call that an FCA, facility condition assessment. So they went through and they took 2 years studying this, 2 years. And the report, when it came out in 2020, said that maybe at the most 39 million in total repairs. That's after 40 years of use. That means it takes about $1 million per year of existence in maintenance to keep it going. Now, is this a credible claim here? They spent 2 years on it. And they even have the details laid out, $7.6 million for generator work. There's the sprinkler system needed to be updated. They needed to retrofit the lighting. There was HVAC controls that need to be updated. And so since this report came out in 2020, they've actually done a lot of things that are on the list. There's been a lot of upkeep. In fact, they just replaced the entire heating system in 2023, $4.5 million. They removed the old steam system from, the late 70s. Now they have the hot water system with 4 new boilers. They replaced air handlers. There was a bond in 2017 that paid for new electrical systems, new ADA compliant restrooms. They re-waterproofed the roof. They've redone the lighting throughout. It's all switched to LED lighting. They have new chillers, new cooling towers on the top. This isn't a neglected building that needs almost $1 billion worth of repair. These people are lying to your face. What happened between 2020 and 2026 that instead of $39 million needed for total repairs, it's now $900 million? That is not believable. These people are lying to your face. And they're lying to your face because they're being paid off in the background by someone who wants that property. We think it's the Mavericks, but we don't really know. They just know that there's an economic development. We just don't know what it is. Oh, you know what it is. You just don't want to tell us because we're on to you. But I have another comparison that we're going to make to other buildings in downtown and see if it makes any sense that a building in 1978 is so dilapidated and deteriorated that we have to tear it down and replace it. It can't even last 50 years. Who is buying that? Besides the TV station and the Dallas Morning News and other idiots that never question what City Hall says anyway. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Do not let them tear down City Hall. It is the dumbest thing Dallas City Hall has ever even proposed. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I mean, a close second would be DART. Now, DART's wasted billions of dollars, but at least they spread it out over 40 years. This would be tearing down a $1 billion building that doesn't need to be torn down to make space for an arena that we don't need. Nothing in this story makes any sense, and it just drives me insane. And I'm not blaming WFAA. This is every TV station in every market I've ever worked at. They're all just, oh, well, there's a new project where they want to revitalize downtown or they want to tear down. Because they just did this in Bug Tussle, and it was just the dumbest idea possible, too. We had a courthouse in Smith County that had been there since, I don't know, 1954 or something. It looks Art Deco. It looks like it was in Atlas Shrugged or something like that. But they just had a great idea to revitalize downtown. Our courthouse is old. Let's tear it down and build a new one. You don't need a new one. Maybe revitalize, maybe do some repairs or some expansion on that one. But it was something that we've grown up with. Every few years, someone's got a new plan to revitalize downtown. Remember when they built West End? They're like, hey, here's what we'll do. We'll take some of these old warehouses. We'll repurpose them. We'll have mixed use. We'll have some apartments over here. We'll have a mall. Remember the West End Mall that had the big arcade at the bottom? We'll have a Planet Hollywood come in. We'll have Sylvester Stallone come cut the ribbon for the opening ceremony. Where's it at now? Gone. What happened to all that money? Gone. What about the genius idea where they're like, let's put some river rapids in the Trinity River downtown? Yeah, because that's what Dallasites like to do. We like to go white water rafting on an inner tube and that nasty, smelly, stinky, dirty, dead body infested Trinity River. Yeah, what a great time. Yeah, let's put it right there next to Oak Cliff. That's really known for swimming. How long did that last? A couple months? Terrible idea. Did you ever get your money back? This is even dumber than those ideas. The City Hall report came back, and they're telling you this morning that they need $906 million to bring City Hall up to snuff. Makes no sense. Reform Dallas is a great group on Facebook that I've just fallen in love with. They were pointing out that to restore, remember when the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris caught fire? It took them 5 years of painstaking historic restoration to rebuild it. And it just got reopened last year. You know how much that cost? $700 million. You cannot tell me our City Hall, that is younger than me, costs more to revitalize than a 1,000-year-old church. It makes no sense whatsoever. These people are lying to your face. Do not be a chump. Do not fall for this. Do not allow this to stand. Because that $1 billion comes out of your backside. There's a reason why your taxes keep going up every year. There's a reason why your property taxes keep going up every year and your sales taxes and all these other. There's a reason why it becomes more and more and more expensive to live in Dallas County and to live in the city of Dallas. It's because of stupid ideas like this. And if you're wondering why people like to move out to Prosper or Salina or Sunnyvale or Miso Forney, it's because they can escape some of this idiocy. They'd rather drive an hour, hour and a half. So they're telling you it's going to take almost $1 billion to renovate this building that's not even 50 years old. Let me give you a quick rundown here of some other buildings that are in downtown Dallas that are the neighbors of City Hall. Because if that building's already dilapidated beyond its use and it's less than 50 years old, someone needs to go to jail. Because it seems like in 1988, when they built the Cumberland Hill School that's still standing in downtown Dallas, I mean, kind of uptown-ish. It's not far from the studio now. It's at 1901 North Ackerd Street. That building's still there. It was built in 1888. You understand that? It was built in 1888, before we had big old hydraulic cranes and lifters and excavators, before we had even really the solid use of electricity. We didn't have the tools. We didn't have the technology. We didn't have the mortar. We didn't have the materials. We didn't have hardy board. We didn't have modern plumbing. We didn't have any of that. We didn't have gypsum. Somehow that building's not dilapidated. That building's still standing. Liars. That is a 140-year-old building, and it was just meant to be a school. The Dallas County Courthouse, the big red one, it's on the west side of downtown. You can see it from the interstate. It's now just the old red museum. That used to be the Dallas County Courthouse. It was built in 1892. You mean to tell me the workmanship in 1892 far surpasses our capabilities in 1978? Lie. Look at some of the other big buildings downtown, though, like Renaissance Tower. Do you know which one that is? That's the one that has like the crisscrosses going up and has a little tiny oil derricks on the top. It was J.R. Ewing's building in Dallas, the TV show. It was built in 1974. How is that still standing? In fact, a big chunk of the buildings, more than half of the buildings in downtown are older than City Hall, and they're still in use. It's called the National. When I used to work downtown, it was called One Elm Place. It's the one with vertical white stripes on it in downtown Dallas. That was built in 1965. That one's fine. The Gables Republic Tower. It's the building that's like 30 stories tall, but it looks like a unicorn because it has that one stick standing off of it off to one side, very not symmetrical. That was built in 1954. It's still standing. The Adolphus Hotel was built in 1912, and it's doing just fine. It's still open for business. They never had to tear it down. If there were repairs to be made, they made the repairs, and it never outpaced the idea of tearing it down and rebuilding it. The Magnolia Hotel right next to it, 1923. The old Mercantile Bank building, 1943. There is no rational explanation on why they want to tear down City Hall and make repairs. They are lying to you about $906 million needed for repairs. Just 6 years ago, when a similar report came out that took 2 years worth of research on it, the high end of the estimate was $39 billion. Or $39 million, I'm sorry. These people are lying to you so they could tear down City Hall, spend $1 billion, hand out $1 billion worth of contracts that's going to go to all their donors, that's going to be funneled right back to them. They're all going to get rich to make a stupid decision that is totally unnecessary, built on a throne of lies. And it really bothers me that the rest of the news just passes this off like it's a fact. Like, well, they said $906 million. Boy, that's a lot. Guess we have to tear it down, fellas. Can we stop being such dupes for 5 seconds? You don't think government lies to you? If you like your plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. You can't go to your grandmother's funeral for COVID. You got to wear this mask. You got to get this vaccine. The guy that was trying to shoot Donald Trump over the weekend is a Trump supporter. These people can't stop lying to you about everything else. They're lying to you about this too. Do not tear down Dallas City Hall. And whoever wants to tear down Dallas City Hall is either thoughtless or in on it. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. On your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins, three funny guys that are about to start in about 15 minutes, so stick around. They'll fill in the gap between the two James shows today. My next guest is a former Secret Service agent. Robert Caltabiano is coming back on the James Show, and I want to ask you, giving your experience, a few things about this sort of attempt on Trump's life at Mar-a-Lago this weekend. One of the reasons why I find this weird is there's an assassination attempt, but the guy's not there. What does that tell you? Do you expect the Secret Service to change some of their protocols in the light of this shooting? Or it seems to be that whatever plans they had laid out worked. So in our lifetime, violence or attempted violence against the president isn't unheard of. You know, Reagan got shot, and a little bit before my time, Ford had some issues too. But are we seeing a spike here? Is Trump experiencing more attempted violence than the previous guys? All right, this is global security expert Robert Caltabiano, former Secret Service. Thank you for being on the James Show again. What's your website? I think it's .org. In my notes, it's .org. Yeah. Thank you. No, glad I could help you out because you just helped me. Thanks, Robert. All right, stick around. Coming up next, Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. I want you to leave it there because I'll also be back at 2 o'clock. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.